Do you know that power rarely fades without resistance? Sometimes it's seized, other times it's compelled to reveal its truths. The global community believed the turmoil in Ivory Coast had ended with President Alassane Ouattara's ousting. Yet what ensued was more perilous than a mere military coup. It was a profound reckoning. At 4:36 a.m. on the uprising's second day, a confidential photograph surfaced. Ouattara, alive, under military custody, composed yet unmistakably subdued, not exiled or executed, but detained by his own forces. This image disrupted the prevailing international narrative. Contrary to Western media reports, Ouattara hadn't fled. He remained in Ivory Coast, facing an unimaginable demand. Once elevated by IMF credentials and Western endorsements, Ouattara now confronted a new generation of nationalist officers, led by a name soon to resonate globally: General Seiko Dumbia. Not a politician or public figure, Dumbia was a disciplined soldier with a singular objective: for Ouattara to renounce the very foreign alliances that facilitated his rise. This wasn't vengeance. It was a symbolic act, signaling to Africa and the world that the era of external puppeteering was over. For decades, Africa grappled with the choice between silence and survival. Now a former president faced a decision between preserving his legacy or remaining loyal to foreign interests, as the world watched intently. Every revolution has its shadow leader until he emerges into the spotlight. Prior to the coup, General Seiko Dumbia was virtually unknown outside military circles. No media presence, no leaks, just a pristine record and quiet ascension through the ranks. Within the Ivorian army, however, he symbolized integrity amidst political subjugation. Born in Korhogo during civil unrest, Dumbia witnessed politics reducing soldiers to pawns. He studied military strategies across Africa, forging alliances beyond Western influence, and consistently questioned the army's true allegiance. By 2024, senior officials viewed him as a threat, while younger soldiers saw a guiding force. When ordered to suppress protests in Abobo, Dumbia made an unprecedented move. He refused. That night, dozens joined him. Within 48 hours, he commanded 3 major battalions and controlled key routes in and out of Abidjan. Without issuing a manifesto or seeking power, he peacefully took the presidential palace, demanding only one thing: the truth about whom Ouattara truly served. This wasn't merely about toppling a regime. It was about dismantling its narrative. Dumbia sought not to rule, but to expose the illusion that African leaders held true sovereignty. Following Ouattara's capture, no violence erupted, a deliberate choice. Dumbia intended to demonstrate that this was a coup of revelation, not ambition. Within a secured military base near Yamoussoukro, the deposed president received care and a straightforward demand. Read a brief statement on national television acknowledging foreign influence over his governance and affirming Ivory Coast's right to self-determination. Initially, Ouattara resisted, anticipating Western intervention. But as silence from his allies persisted, pressure mounted. Dumbia's forces released documents revealing secret contracts and offshore payments, confirming long-suspected corruption. One file alone traced $82 million from a European energy firm to Ouattara's inner circle. Dumbia then addressed the nation. "We will not move forward until the past admits what it was." Ivory Coast sought not an apology, but a confession, understanding that true independence begins with truth. For 3 days, Ouattara remained silent. International media speculated, but inside the military base, he was confronted daily with evidence of his administration's compromises. Each evening, he was offered a chance to respond, not to his captors, but to the people. On the 4th day, he whispered, "If I speak, they will abandon me, and if I don't, I will abandon myself." It was a moment of clarity, recognizing that his foreign sponsors had withdrawn their support. Across Africa, leaders watched, some with fear, others with admiration. This wasn't just the fall of a president. It was the emergence of a new form of accountability, immune to diplomatic or financial influence. In Abidjan, citizens gathered silently outside the RTI broadcasting building, holding signs, "Let him speak. Before elections, let us hear the truth. We forgive, but not without confession." This was national therapy, not vengeance. Dumbia hadn't demanded surrender. He sought truth, wielding conscience as his most potent weapon. As Ivory Coast awaited Ouattara's next move, the West remained conspicuously silent. No rescue attempts, no diplomatic interventions. France, the EU, and the US calculated their responses, wary of defending a leader now exposed for corruption. Western statements were generic, calls for restraint, dialogue, and close monitoring. Meanwhile, Ivorians took action. Universities hosted forums on Ouattara's legacy, and discussions about sovereignty and foreign influence permeated society. Dumbia's released documents resonated beyond Ivory Coast. Activists in Senegal, Mali, Chad, and the DRC scrutinized their own government's dealings, questioning the extent of foreign control. The coup evolved into a continental referendum on post-colonial influence. Inside the military compound, Ouattara was shown images of growing crowds demanding his confession. On the seventh night he asked, "If I speak, will it make a difference?" Dumbia replied, "Yes, because you were their tool, but you can choose not to die as one." On the morning of the 8th day, a national broadcast was announced. Citizens gathered around screens as the image of Alassane Ouattara appeared, seated, composed, without presidential regalia. He began, "I speak today not as a president, but as a son of this soil who lost his way." He admitted to allowing foreign interests to dictate national policies, confirming secret agreements and the suppression of opposition under external pressure. His most poignant statement: "We did not fight for independence to become administrators of a foreign-designed script. To the youth of Africa, break the script. To my generation, we failed you, but you must not fail yourselves." The broadcast ended in silence, a silence of understanding. Across West Africa, emotions surged, not for Ouattara, but for what had been lost in the name of development. In Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, soldiers paused training to watch. In France, officials scrambled to respond without indicting their entire African policy. In Abidjan, General Dumbia watched alone, offering no comment, only a nod. He had sought truth, and he received it from an unexpected source. Ouattara's confession reverberated across the continent. In Senegal, students protested, urging their leaders to admit similar truths. In Gabon, leaked state contracts surfaced. In Chad, a military colonel simply posted, "Respect." At the African Union summit, leaders debated Dumbia's approach. Some praised his emphasis on truth, others feared the precedent it set. Yet the real discourse unfolded in classrooms, religious centers, and homes. General Dumbia, avoiding celebration, addressed the nation. "Ivory Coast has received the truth. Now we must build on it, not to punish the past, but to protect the future." He outlined plans for a Truth and Sovereignty Commission, a new civilian charter, and a 12-month roadmap to elections, prohibiting foreign campaign financing. Africa, long forced to choose between silence and rebellion, now embraced reflection. Post-confession, France faced a crisis. The Élysée Palace convened emergency meetings. French media attempted to downplay the confession, but few were convinced. Even French youth of African descent protested, declaring, "The empire is falling." The real concern in Paris wasn't Dumbia's seizure of power, it was his refusal to retain it. He wasn't seeking approval, he was redefining the rules. The US adopted a stance of calculated indifference, issuing a brief statement supporting peaceful transitions and commending Ouattara's service, notably omitting any mention of the confession. Or Dumbia. Russia and China responded differently, offering infrastructure deals and military partnerships. Dumbia declined, stating, "We are not shifting from one master to another, we are taking responsibility for ourselves." Instead, he proposed a continental partnership model, inviting African nations to collaborate based on mutual respect. 3. Weeks after Ouattara's confession, Ivory Coast embarked on drafting a new constitution through a people's assembly inclusive of farmers, students, women, and diaspora members. Proposals included banning foreign military bases without public referendums, outlawing foreign campaign financing, and introducing civic education on neocolonialism. A 24-year-old woman poignantly stated, "We don't want to burn the bridge. We just want to be the ones who decide where it leads." The new constitution proposed a rotating executive council, limiting individual power and emphasizing collective governance. Ouattara, now a private citizen, remained in the country. When asked about endorsing the new constitution, he replied, "I have already spoken. Now let them speak louder than I ever did." 6 months post-coup, Ivory Coast held its first truly sovereign election, monitored solely by African civic groups. Turnout was high, tensions low, and the winning coalition focused on structural reforms and educational renewal, not personalities or partisan gains. Their first act in office was symbolic yet profound. They renamed the presidential palace to the People's Hall, declaring it a space of service, not dominion. General Seiko Dumbia did not run for office. He returned to military command with a clear boundary between civilian governance and military stewardship.